Hello, hello. Um, Today, this morning, this afternoon, we are going to talk about some difficult things. And I know that it's going to be hard to hear some of these things because it was for me. It was hard for me to read them. But the truth is the truth. And today I want to give voice to the voiceless. I feel like I have to say this every time I do a video. I was not negatively impacted by this ministry. Nothing bad happened to me. That's not why I left. But I believe that we are to stand for truth and righteousness. We're to carry each other's burdens. We are to be people of light. And so during this video, I am going to share some things that people have given me permission to share. I am going to end it with some statements from Bakersfield from those who were a part of that ministry. But I also want to share scripture, 2 articles that I previously posted, and a compilation of some videos. Okay, so just several things. So be patient with me, okay? If you can. So the scripture I want to start with is Ephesians 5, chapter 5, verses 10 to 14. And try to learn in your experience what is pleasing to the Lord. Let your lives be constant proofs of what is most acceptable to Him. Take no part in and have no fellowship with fruitless deeds and enterprises of darkness, but instead let your lives be so in contrast as to expose and reprove and convict them. For it is a shame even to speak of or mention the things that such people practice in secret. But when anything is exposed and reproved by the light, it is made visible and clear. And where everything is visible and clear, there is light. Therefore he says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall shine. Make day dawn upon you and give you light. Now, since leaving and doing the videos, bringing awareness to some things I've experienced, I have received many thank yous and testimonies of people who thought that they were alone in some of the things that they were seeing or discerning or feeling. And I know right now there's just a time of mockery right now, that there is a control of information that is trying to be done. There have been some people that have called me, that have reached out to me in Messenger. And since requesting leadership, if they wanted to reach out to me via email, that would be the only way to reach out to me. No one has made contact with me or attempted to reach out to me via email. I did have one person who's still part of the church reach out to me and try to be concerned. And because she wasn't willing to answer my question of, I wanted to know why she was calling, even after I responded to her question, she became verbally aggressive with me. And I'm not somebody who tolerates that. And so I can just tell you guys, to be honest, it wasn't a pretty conversation. Actually, it wasn't a conversation at all. And so I want to share some video compilations, some audios. I'm going to start with this one. Hopefully you can hear it.
Encourage you. Your seat at the Breakers Conference is just as important as the stage, because your seat is a stage. Because when people see you representing, we make a statement in America. And now there are some haters and some small-minded, biblically illiterate morons. Can I say that on stage? Who don't see the value of a stadium, and they think that just because something's big, it's not God. Like as if God only blesses the 4 frozen chosen that meet for the home Bible study without a church or a pastor. Like that's holier. But if you read the 19th chapter of the book of Acts, you will see the apostle Peter or the apostle Paul went into a stadium and encourage you. Your seat at the Breakers Conference is just as important as the stage, because your seat is a stage. Because when people...
Next.
$10 to go visit the Holy Spirit up in a stadium. So that's my rebuke. Was that okay? I feel like I have to do it because I love Isaiah Saldivar. Shout out if you're watching right now, Isaiah. He's my friend. We talk. Vlad Sofchuk, he hit me up this morning. We're talking. Pagani is down the street. Don't you guys love Amazing Church and Apostle Pagani and all them? I love all them. But I don't want the stadium filled with their people. I want it filled with our people. And the thing that, and listen, we love them, but this is our conference. And little quick history note, every stage of V1 Church, I've had to lead us apostolically through decisions that my own people resisted and didn't like. How many parents do we have here? $10 to go visit.
Listen some more.
Back and get offended. Oh no. We are mighty intercessors. Come on. We say, God, circumcise my heart. I'm not going to be involved in that group that's gossiping about my pastor, that's lying on them, that's making all kind of videos trying to assassinate and pull down my pastor and lie on him. No, I'm not going to even be a part of that. I am actually going to unfriend. I'm going to get myself out of that. And I'm going to say, Lord, let me be in the group that we can intercede and pray for our lead pastors. Come
Unmute. Sorry, I'm going to unmute.
bless you. And you go tell people I said that. I don't care. It's the word. When we grumble about our pastors, when we gossip about our pastors, when we assassinate our pastors, when we lie on our pastors and walk in a spirit of deception toward our pastors, and we do these things in the closet, and then we bring it out in the open, listen, God's blessings will be stopped in your life. God clearly says in his word, touch not mine anointed. So these people that are putting their mouth and doing all these evil things against our pastors and saying things, they don't know what they're doing, because it's a very fearful thing to fall into the hands of God when you have openly put your mouth, or even in the closet, in secret, talking on the phone, gossiping about your pastors. Listen, do not associate with those kinds of people, because you are who you hang with. Who am I talking? Pastor.
All right. I wouldn't want to be friends with anybody who talks like that about me. This is not supposed to be our conference, your conference, but it's supposed to be about the unsaved, right? It's supposed to be an evangelism tool. It's supposed to be about God. It's supposed to be about Jesus. Why does it matter how many of your group or people are in there? And see, when we're so close to something, we're not even listening to the words that are being spoken to us. Now, when it comes to the Lord's, do not touch the Lord's anointed. Let me read to you what that's about. The command to touch not God's anointed is found in 2 places in Scripture. Do not touch my anointed ones. Do my prophets no harm. 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 22. Psalm 105, verse 15. These passages are sometimes used in Pentecostal and charismatic circles to defend certain preachers from criticism. Preachers who promote themselves or their ministries as anointed warn their would-be critics, do not touch God's anointed. Of course, this helps to insulate them from scrutiny and allows them to spread falsehood and bad theology unrestrained. Others take God's command, do not touch my anointed ones, to do my prophets no harm, to mean that Christians are promised protection from all bad things. Well, we know this in the book of Job. That's not true, right? Both of the above interpretations, do not touch my anointed ones, ignore the context of the passages in question. The anointed ones in these passages are not modern-day Pentecostal preachers. And the Bible never promises that God's prophets, anointed ones, children, or other faithful believers will never suffer harm from evil people. As Jesus explained to the Pharisees, God in his wisdom said, I will send them prophets and apostles, some of whom they will kill, and others they will persecute. That is Luke 11:49. Now, I have unsubscribed. Where's on my phone? I have unsubscribed from the emails. And today I received an email, which is a mass email. Let me open it back up. And I know that this is a response to things that have been being said. And I got this from Pastor Mike's email. So I'm going to read it because I know that it is a mass email. Cult or covering? I see a lot of discussion about this online right now. Because of the availability of teaching, we have relatively new problem of crowds, but no covering. We also have immature and underdeveloped leaders providing covering in a form of control. Both extremes are hurting a lot of people. My question is, who is your covering? Who are your elders, Pastor Mike? Who is covering you? Because we would love to send them an email, send them letters, send them everything that has been going on. I've been faithfully serving, he says, in ministry for decades in all kinds of roles within the local church. And I sat down to do the most in-depth teaching on this topic to date. Now, everything he does is in-depth. It's renowned. It's all these, catchphrases, right? But the Bible tells us that there's nothing new under the sun. So if it's new, I think that's going to bring some concern, right? Now, I want to read to you articles that I've posted before about signs of a cult and signs of spiritual abuse. Because as you've heard in the previous videos, there is information control trying to occur. The power of suggestion, of unfriending people, separating yourselves from these people, and I think what's interesting is that there's so much emphasis on not talking about pastors. But how contradictory is that when your pastor is a social media influencer and talks about pastors and talks about, leadership and talks about local churches and, so I think that's kind of interesting to hear these words. But again, touch not the Lord's anointed, right? Used completely out of context. Signs of spiritual abuse is one. Oh, and by the way, I've also had many sisters reach out to me and say, though you're not part of V1, I still love you. You can still reach out to me. And I love them for that. But it just furthermore confirms the seriousness of this, that anyone would even have to reach out to me and say that though you're not part of V1, that I'm still going to talk to you, still going to pray for you, still love you. And I find that very, very odd. But the signs of spiritual abuse are: 1, spiritually abusive leaders twist the truth to make themselves look better. And you end up questioning if you heard them correctly or were misinterpreting something. Spiritually abusive leaders, I'm going to bring this down here so I'm not looking up. Spiritually abusive leaders make you feel you can't change churches or you'll miss out on what God has for you. Spiritually abusive leaders demand their way over your free will and scare you with threats to your reputation if you don't comply, or shame you by bringing up your past failures. Spiritually abusive leaders demand to be served instead of serve. Spiritually abusive leaders silence their critics by making them the bad guy. Spiritually abusive leaders don't give you credit for your ideas and successes, but take the credit for themselves. Spiritually abusive leaders bully, shame, and tease you into breaking your communicated boundaries. Spiritually abusive leaders dismiss you when you no longer serve their need. Spiritually abusive leaders accuse you of stealing their message when you grow beyond them. Spiritually abusive leaders gaslight you into thinking you are crazy. Spiritually abusive leaders can't admit fault, use the knowledge of others to fault to cause fear and intimidation. Spiritually abusive leaders have their minions do this. Now, this is in the article, not my words, okay? Have their minions do their dirty work and isolate, intimidate, and manipulate those who don't comply. Spiritually abusive leaders surround themselves with the elite and don't interact with the sheep. Spiritually abusive leaders use their charisma to create a cult-like following that would defend them when they are questioned. Spiritually abusive leaders create a culture of popular inner circle. If someone raises concern, they are put out of the clique, and other inner circle people are afraid to speak up. Spiritually abusive leaders surround themselves with only people who praise them, fear them, or submit to them. Spiritually abusive leaders convince people they can't understand the deep things of God and need their help. Spiritually abusive leaders don't help you overcome sin in your life, but discard you if you make them look like a bad leader. Spiritually abusive leaders and churches view those who bring up legitimate issues as enemies. Those who were once friends, allies, swiftly become enemies once a concern is raised. Sometimes these folks are banished, told to be silent, or shamed into submission. This is a quote from Mary DeMoth. Spiritually abusive leaders lie without a conscience. They see their platform as worth protecting for the sake of the gospel. What is a cult? 10 warning signs. 1. Absolute authoritarianism without accountability. 0 tolerance for criticism or questions. Lack of meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. Unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil, conspiracies, and persecutions. A belief that former followers are always wrong for leaving, and there is never a legitimate reason for anyone else to leave. Abuse of members. Records, books, articles, or programs documenting the abuses of the leader or group. Followers feeling they are never able to be good enough. A belief that the leader is right at all times. A belief that the leader is exclusive means of knowing truth or giving validation. Now I'm going to read people who gave me permission, brothers and sisters who gave me permission to share their experiences. Now, some of them are in therapy. Some of them have been able to move on and gratefully be a part of their local church and serve faithfully. Some of them have not been able to step back in a church. Some of them have needed deliverance outside of this church. And some of them are just struggling. They're lost without a shepherd. Some of this is going to be really hard for me to read through, hard for you to hear. But no one can take their truth or their voice away. I'm going to start with the small one. It says, thanks for your bravery and sharing. I am a pastor at a church that's not V1, and I have had to do trauma therapy for my time at V1. The next one. Hi, Nikita. I just wanted to message you because I appreciate your heart and transparency regarding why you left V1. We went there to the physical Amityville location, and we moved, so essentially that was why we left. But we wanted to get out for a while. The things that happened, the stories I could tell. We needed help in our marriage. They did nothing. My kid was injured in V1 Kids. Nothing was done. The treatment and burnout of my husband, it's amazing he has stepped foot into another church. I am so proud and thankful that he spoke out. I felt abandoned for so long when PM changed his plan and said we are now global, so he could make money. Thank you again for being willing to share. Now there are some names that I have changed just because it's not about it's about giving a voice to what has happened. I'm going to pause because there's something that we need to understand, and I didn't know this either. But we were always directed to certain people. We didn't know about there being a board that we could even talk to them. We didn't know about elders that we could even talk to them. There was specific people that we were sent to talk to. And so some of the stories that have been told to me revolve around these specific people. And though the top has known a lot of the things that have gone on, there was a lot of pretending that they didn't know. And it caused a lot of issues, specifically for the Bakersfield location. And I'll share what was shared with me as well. But on to the next. Also, added to my healing as leaving. Emotionally has been so hard, and joining another church, not at all like V1, has been really challenging me. Thank you so much. This is real heart message, and it shows that you are an incredible person for Jesus. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have just been misled. I wish I knew the real story, but I don't think that will ever come to pass. I just hope people know that there is freedom after V1. And I think that is what you are sharing and has done for me. Sharing has done for me. I felt so much guilt for leaving, even though we were moving. PM said he hoped we would be part of online community, but there was nothing for us, and no one reached out to us. My husband was the one who ran the sound and live stream, and all of production for many years. The next one. I was wondering if you'd be open to talking to me, as I left V1 over a year ago, and have had no one to speak to. I left for a few reasons. One of which, I was in bed fighting for my life for over 2 months. Only 2 people messaged me. The first Sunday back, a male whom was married and going into leadership accused me of relapsing and said some things that was not appropriate. So I brought it to higher up. They didn't do anything. I was working with a girl. I recover. And her husband was a greeter and would hug on females and get a rise out of it. I brought it to leadership and they said to pray for him. I felt more should have been done. I haven't been able to open to anyone. I was talking to my therapist Friday about this. She is a Christian therapist. I feel like a Christian needs a Christian therapist for many reasons. I saw something in the comments about the mom, and I have never really felt she was right. She never sat right with me. I had a stillborn baby at 8 months pregnant, and I was grieving hard, and I was on for a prayer with the church, and I asked for prayers over grieving my son, and she reached out wanting to pray one-on-one. And she told me she felt like I needed to go through deliverance because she felt like it was something demonic. When I went to my leaders about it, including pastors who are no longer there, they all said that it was not correct and something was going to be said to M about it. The next one. Hey, I listened to your entire post about why you left V1. And I want to publicly respond, just not at this moment, but I wanted to let you know that I believe that what you did was from the Lord. You exposed the truth in the most respectful, honest, non-gossipy, non-maliciously, not a bunch of other negative ways. And this was something I felt led to do, but couldn't yet, because I'm still too sad and too angry. I too questioned Prophet. and the projection and was shut down. I also at one time was disciplined for not referring to a pastor as pastor, and I've questioned many other things. I questioned PM's relationship with Mark Driscoll. That's what she wrote. I questioned the Britney influencer that he had, and I can go on and tell you that I was shut down and gaslit and told I was wrong many times. But I knew I was right. For me, there was a time when V1 saved my life and became my home and my everything. And it was not something that I would easily let go of. However, not only do I feel that PM has fallen from his first love, but I also feel that many other pastors and leaders have too. And it has become a cult-like organization, and they are hurting many. I pray with you that the Lord will expose the lies and sins and the dysfunctions of V1 and bring them back to God's will, because this church and PM do have the potential to continue to make a positive difference in this lost and dying world. So I try not to be bitter, not gossip, and pray that they go back to the beginning with Jesus as their creator. I do, however, wonder if anyone has a recording of when PM humiliated Pastor Nat in a pastor's meeting. I'm so confused how not one pastor rebuked him, stopped him, or stuck up for her. They were all guilty, and as quickly as he turned on Pastor Nat and Pastor Patrick and made them his scapegoats, he could do it to them. Anyway, thank you for your boldness and for not blindly following a leader and for not just being a sheep. I always feel so alone because everyone else around me is so blind and questions nothing PM does. Another one. Hi, Nikita. Thank you for your video. It confirmed everything me and my husband were feeling about V1. We have also decided to leave. In fact, we made the decision this past Sunday. I honestly started to see things differently about the time M's documentary came out in the fall. I started to see cult-like behavior. I'm so glad you made your video. It was a meander of things, but one thing for sure that stood out was we did not feel the Holy Spirit moving there anymore. We started seeing more or less like cult-like behavior among the congregants, and also I used to serve on the camera team, and when pastor would come in town, I would be in the same proximity as he would not, and he would not ever really say hello or hi, thank you for serving, nothing. And I started thinking, why am I serving in a church where a pastor doesn't even know my name? Our discernment started kicking in when M was promoting his documentary. It seemed to be more about him. Next. Hi, Nikita. I don't know if you know me. I can't recall if we met. I want to thank you for your courage for posting about what happened at V1. I had been a member there for several years. In the last few, there's been a shift, not a good one. I refrained from speaking about it, not wanting to be accused of gossiping or causing strife in the church. I left because I was hurting, and I would feel worse after service than ever before I walked in. I left V1 earlier this year. Not one leader noticed or reached out to me. I was there at the beginning. I served load in and load out in admin. Not one call. That is not community or care. You presented in such a way that was constructive, shining a light on the issues. Thank you for bravely speaking the truth. Thank you for making me feel not alone, for confirming that I made the right decision, as hard as it was. I share these because many people feel that they were alone, that they were silenced, that there was no one that they could turn to. And now they can see they truly aren't alone. I'm going into testimony of Bakersfield now. Now, I know that there was a comment about people not knowing the truth and speaking on things that we don't know. But I have seen the text messages. I have seen the videos. I have seen a lot. So I'm not speaking on things I don't know. I have talked to several people, and their stories all align. Now, in this next one, does have to do with Bakersfield. And I tried not to make too many changes, but I did of the names. Just because it's a lot. It's a lot, you guys. The people's names that are in here that I do mention, I have received permission to say their names. I have also received their testimony, and I will also be saying that as well. Hey, I attended V1 for about 7 months-ish only, but I was serving as the Dream Team coordinator and leading a small group and helping one of the main Bakersfield leaders in whatever she needed before everything happened. In February, we saw Nellie and Israel being deleted from our WhatsApp without any explanation. And when that happened, me and my family immediately felt it in the spirit that something was off, because we knew this family by their fruits. When I say we, as in my siblings and I, felt in the spirit so much so that our bodies were shaking, and I mean literally our bodies were jittery, shaky. It just felt so off, and we started asking what happened. I texted his family, and that's when we first heard what happened. We could not believe it. It was sad to know that the main leaders of Bakersfield had spoken so ugly and disrespectful to them. So a few minutes later, people started asking what had happened in our WhatsApp group. That's when messages started getting deleted right away. So that made it seem more off. So I texted one of the main leaders of Bakersfield personally and asked, and I quote, "Did you mean to remove Nellie and Israel? Just wanted to make sure it wasn't an accident." And she responded with, I quote, "Hey, yes. Nellie and Israel weren't able to grasp the entire vision of V1 Church. They did leave before on their own for their own personal reasons and came back 4 months. And they decided to come back, but they decided they can't buy into or submit to the vision of V1. It was hard for them to submit to the process of learning and growing under the house, so they decided to move on and find another church home." This is actually a lie. That was text to this person. None of it was true. And this is also another thing. I shared a global gathering meeting where the executive pastor and the lead pastor used kind of the same verbiage, kind of basically saying, that they've moved on. We're encouraging them on to their next position. And then we're in agreement. That was all a lie. And I've confirmed it because I've asked myself. I've actually sent those messages and asked myself if any of this was true and received more details on what happened. So pertaining to this leader at Bakersfield completely lied on Nellie and Israel. Immediately after that, people started leaving the chat and saying why they were leaving, and their messages were being blocked and deleted as soon as they would share it, which was very weird. The main leaders of Bakersfield to delete and blocking them when they were telling us they were leaving because they didn't because they didn't agree on how they treated people, which is why I left myself. Then we had a Zoom with V1's lead pastor and executive pastor. It was not even genuine. We felt it in our spirit that he did not care for us. He just cared for his image. In that almost 3-hour Zoom, there was so much lying from the lead pastor. He had no accountability. He kept blaming other leaders when we all knew everything flows from the top, which is him. I felt like he was trying to brush us off, and he thought we didn't know what was really going on. It was really sad how he really shut down the church instead of coming down to Bakersfield to have a meeting in person. I mean, what pastor wouldn't meet their sheep when he knows that all his sheep left besides like 4 people at once? What kind of pastor just shuts it all down before fully knowing what all had went down? Meaning him shutting it down before we even had that Zoom. He said he couldn't come down to Bakersfield that weekend because he was leaving right after that LA event in Singapore, which he did not. He left until Monday. And he had arrived days earlier in LA. He had time, but he just chose not to prioritize the hub. And then how Pastor E spoke to this family was horrible. No pastor or no leader should ever talk down to anyone the way he did. It didn't matter if he only knew the main leader of Bakersfield side of the story or both sides. Who tells someone they are like cancer and a Pharisee just because they decided to speak out on these leaders working at a gentleman's private club? How the other leader was still cussing. How they had seen liquor bottles in the closet where the kids would have Sunday class. How bad they were being treated and talked to. The lead pastor even lied to us on that Zoom, talking about he didn't even know or trust the main leaders of Bakersfield like that. So how do you first of all put someone as leaders if you don't know them like that? 2, who would put someone as their armor bearer to protect their life if you don't know or trust them like that? Makes no sense. 3, he said he never put them as pastors, when there is a message stating in fact he did about weeks before the Zoom. February 9th, to be exact. Why lie? To this day, not once have any of us received a "how are you?" Nothing. How do you just abandon people you used to sheep? And then still go behind our backs and talk crap about us, calling us, V1 Bakersfield, a bunch of Mexicans teaming up, and saying because of his wisdom, he was able to stop an atomic bomb from going off. If it wasn't for Nellie and Israel, he would have never clearly knew what was truly going on. But he was right on something. And that is us being a bunch of Mexicans having each other's backs for the righteous things of the Lord, and on us being an atomic bomb, but in fact, we are a righteous atomic bomb. No, he did not stop anything because we are speaking out. So that is why I left. I never experienced anything personally, but I will forever fight and stand up for the righteous things. She provided a text message from the leaders to prove what she said. And the text message says, "Hey, yes, Nellie and Israel weren't able to grasp the entire vision of V1 Church. They did leave before their own personal reasons and came back 4 months, and they decided to come back. But they've decided that they can't buy into or submit to the vision. It was hard for them to submit to the process. To the process of learning and growing under this house. So they've decided to move on and find another church home." And then this person responded, my heart breaks and breaks me and my family, and I feel a heaviness that came over our spirit. Something just doesn't feel right. We are praying over them at our church. So you guys have to understand that these people loved V1. They did buy every testimony that I just read right now. They bought into the vision. They wanted to submit. They wanted accountability. But the moment something was off, the moment they started asking questions, the moment they started sharing their concern, was when they became blocked and silenced. This next one is of Nellie and Israel. There was a text that was sent to me, which is what I'm going to read, but I also had a conversation with them over the phone, and I wrote down some of the things that they shared with me because it's a lot. V1 journey. My family and I started attending V1 back in February of 2023. From the first day we started attending C&W's hub, we would question certain things that seemed off to us, Nellie and Israel. For example, thank you for your yes, as well as we honor Pastor M and Pastor J, never giving honor to Jesus, who deserves all the honor and the glory. One day, when I took my son to one of the rooms at C&W's place, which was being utilized for the kids attending V1 Bakersfield, I looked up and seen a bottle of Hennessy, along with another liquor bottle on top of a hutch. I decided to show grace on them and continue to serve. Weeks went by, and I noticed people in groups leaving V1 Bakersfield. When we would ask C&W, they would act like it was a secret, or we were gossiping by simply asking. Although they would leave, they were never taken off the WhatsApp chat, which we thought was weird, but left it at that. San Francisco trip with Pastor M and Pastor E. When PM and PE came to San Francisco, California, I was Pastor E's armor bearer. During this time, I was questioning W and C's leadership. I noticed C not allowing W to lead, and W would always be cussing. C and W kept letting us know that they were going to be our pastors in Bakersfield. It would worry me because everyone I would invite would hear W cussing, and they would notice C not allowing W to lead. He would have to ask C what to do in everything, including what he could wear. Bakersfield Revival Service, day after San Francisco. The day of the revival service, C brought people from her work to be part of the dream team to impress and fake out PM. Where on typical Sunday, our DT, dream team, attendance was 8 to 10 people. That day, we had approximately 30 plus dream team members. It was all fake. That day, I was so bothered because it was a lie, and it was fake. My spirit was bothered. I went into prayer and fasting. After that, literally 2 days later, M canceled the revival service and shut down V1 Bakersfield, leaving everyone scattered. Then they shared text messages with me. It says, "Hey Israel, this is PJ. I am reaching out to some families from Bakersfield. Some information was brought to our attention in some WhatsApp chats, and I would really love to hear you and your wives' hearts for us to know your experience. We value you guys and anything you would be willing to share. Thanks so much. Please let me know if you guys can do a Zoom together." Hello, Jay. Pastor Jay. I thought some things were over. My wife and I are willing to talk and share the experiences that we've had at V1 under C&W's leadership. However, under one condition, we ask that Pastor M, Jay, and yourself be present for the Zoom meeting. We ask this because they were our lead pastors. And we've been constantly told on behalf of PM and PJ, so we want to speak with them directly via Zoom. We feel like we've been mistreated by PE, so we ask that he does not attend the Zoom meeting. We would like to give our side of the story without feeling manipulated or our character being attacked. Even though we feel hurt, we will not be disrespectful in any way. We will honor Christ and respect everyone attending the Zoom meeting. I understand Pastor M is busy, but so are we. Our time is equally as valuable as everyone else's. And we aren't just able to have a conversation with him, especially regarding a matter as serious as this. Their response: thank you for reaching out, and we appreciate your willingness to have a conversation. I understand your request to have PM present. However, due to his busy schedule, he won't be able to attend the Zoom. I assure you that I will be there to listen to your concerns and address the matters at hand. I want to hear from as many people over the next day, and PM is unable to be in these with his schedule. We value your perspective and want to ensure a constructive and respectful dialogue. Please let me know a time that works for you. So I believe with these messages, there was some gleaming of hope, right? That there would be some resolution. Now, these text messages are before the Zoom audio that I shared with you guys on previous lives. And we know how that went. So when I spoke with Israel and Nellie over the phone, I'm just going to share with you some of the notes to give greater perspective on what they experienced. So as we see that PM, the lead pastor, the executive pastor, the theologian of the house, the leaders of the Bakersfield, everyone is aware of what's going on. So per them, they said PM pretended to not know anything going on. Mentioned Pastor P. He mentioned to Pastor P about an email that he received from Israel. The first time they left, they wanted Pastor P's blessing to leave. Then 90% of Bakersfield left. Pastor P reached out to ask what really happened. Then Pastor J attended a Zoom meeting and was a witness to what was said about the mistreatment, alcohol, and random volunteers at the revival that did not go through growth track. Pastor M was warned through Josh about the vision given by Nellie and Israel. They had gotten a vision about a vision that they had received about V1 and everything that was going on. And so that's what they were referring to. In January, February of 2014, people were leaving upset, not knowing what's going on. Israel shared a concern about CNW becoming pastors. Now, in one of the audios that I shared with, I believe you could hear the pastor talking about that he didn't know these people. But I can confirm with you that these people were a part of V1 College. C was there for 2 years. W was there for probably the 1 year. Their home was the main Bakersfield location, and then they grew to about 50 to 60 people. And so they became an actual hub. And from my understanding, at one point, W was an armor bearer for lead pastor when he was in town for services. So this brought a little bit of confusion to them because they were like, well, how do you not know CNW when they have been playing these roles? And why would you put them in a leadership position if you didn't know them? So it's just a lot of inconsistencies. And all this time, they're still wanting to be honorable. They're still wanting to be, respectful Nelly and Israel. And not wanting to be bitter, not wanting to, they really felt like there was something wrong with them. And share later that Israel ends up getting like really sick because of all the stress, the overwhelming stress. But anyways, so they ended up having dinner with C and W, and C told them that W was a wet bar guy at the gentleman's club where C worked at. And so this was told to the pastors that were covering Bakersfield. So, and those pastors would end up bringing their concerns about that up the chain. And so yeah, so they would bring it up, the chain of command or whatever. So Nellie find out that C's father is sick or whatnot, and so she decides to make a soup for him. And so they called W and they asked for Nellie to be able to take the soup over to C. And they are given this address by W, and they go to this building. This building has a locked door. You have to put a code in. And when they knock on the door, a scantily clad woman comes out. And they ask for C because they thought they were in the wrong place, because they had an understanding that she had a different kind of job. And so C ends up coming to the door and hands gets the soup. They end up doing some background research into this specific location, and they find that it's a place for high rollers. It's a place that not just anybody can just walk in or attend. And they recognize this woman at being at one of the revivals, or at one of the actually they said it's one of the all-in team nights. So there's a Zoom meeting that is called, and Pastor P is there and PE is there. And Israel was called prideful, that he had a prideful spirit, that he had a spirit of Pharisee. When Nellie tried to speak up to defend her husband, she was told to be quiet, that they could not defend themselves. They were called, Israel was called a cancer and needed to be removed. That he needed to be humble. That W was the most humble person that PE knew. Israel and Nellie had been called pillars of V1 Bakersfield for a while. And so they didn't understand why they were being spoken to. And so they said, we're pillars. Like, why? And they were shut down. They were told they were not pillars of V1 Bakersfield, that they were actually in the hospital. And so to give you kind of context about this is that one of the things that we are taught and told is that we are to bring people in from the hospital, to the family, to the army. So that's where you're hearing this kind of language from, okay, about the hospital. And so Israel didn't understand, like, well, if he's in the hospital, why is he and his family being kicked out? Why are they being removed? Why are they being talked like this and not cared for? They were called wounded. They felt humiliated. Israel began thinking that he was actually the problem himself. He was told to seek guidance and forgiveness from W and C, and to take them out and spend money on them. Israel and Nellie reached out to friends that were not part of V1. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they're pastors. And they told him everything that was going on. And I believe at this time, this is when they realized about the spiritual abuse that was happening. So they reached out to C&W and they said, hey, we can't afford to take you out to dinner, but we can go to Starbucks. And so they agreed to go to Starbucks. And there was a conversation that had occurred. There was a recording that was done. C took out their phone to record. They told them that they couldn't defend themselves and that they were not abiding by the systems. Nellie, at this time, Nellie and Israel did end up standing up for themselves. And this particular meeting didn't end so well. So there was a meeting that was set up for a Zoom meeting for PJ. And again, the screenshots that I just shared with you guys about PM being, just really busy and not able to speak with them. So then finally, after some time, after, requesting a meeting, one does happen. And PM was acting as if he had no idea what was going on, saying he doesn't even know these people, referring to C&W. He stated that he felt something in his spirit that something was going on. But he said that none of the leaders were telling him what was going on. And PM did ask, what can we do to make this right? And Nellie and Israel said that he needed to speak to the people of Bakersfield. They told him because they are scattered and lost, waiting for an answer. They don't even know what to do. One of the brothers shut everyone out. And at this time, Nellie and Israel did open up their home for these people, for the people they served with and had been doing church with, because they had nowhere else to go. They were praying, they were worshiping, they were, just trying to carry each other's burdens during this season. And again, this was about a church of about 50 to 60 people. Their church consisted of just young adults. So you can only imagine, being new to being a follower of Christ and experiencing this, and then being a young adult and everything that comes with that. And then now you're left without a church after you just bought into a vision, right? And not knowing what's going on. The women were hurting. No one reached out to the women. Pastor Nat and Pastor P did end up reaching out. We're reaching out to them. But because there was so much hurt and so much confusion, and they didn't know who they can trust, they did not at first feel comfortable with speaking to them. And that's reasonable, right? So finally, there was a scheduled Zoom meeting. And I did share snippets of that previously. Israel became very sick, and the doctor stated that it was from overwhelming stress, and he was blaming himself, feeling discouraged. Now, I know this is a lot, and there's really honestly so much more. But the one thing I asked them after all this, I said, how are you doing now? What does your healing look like? Where are you at now? And they said that they spoke to other pastors about what happened. They're currently Israel's currently being discipled through it and he's going back and sharing with his family, what he is learning by his pastor, his current pastor. And his current pastor is doing Bible study. So that is how him and his family are getting through this time. He is working with a pastor one-on-one. He is receiving discipleship and Bible study with this pastor to help him and his family through this healing. They did end up going back to their previous church. And their pastor actually did speak about healing and accountability and how a church is to be ran, which helped their healing. They even apologized to their pastor for leaving. One of the things that we talked about was this big thing about local churches doing it wrong. So they felt they were led to believe that their local churches were doing it all wrong and V1 was doing it all right. And I can relate to that. And so I myself want to publicly apologize to my local churches here in my area for buying into that lie. And although there are some questionable things, right? There are some really good churches out there, local churches. And I can tell you that the one thing recently, the rhetoric that's happening is, get connected to a local church, be a part of the local church. And the one thing that always kind of confused me is that for those of us who are part of the global community, the global is our quote unquote local church because we're not rooted in a local church in our area. And so it really brought questions to like, you're talking so poorly about, us watching teachings on YouTube and all this other stuff, but that's how we're receiving church online. And so it really had me questioning, and even them, the local church, the local body. And so I want to encourage you too, if you need a church, find a local church. Sure, we're not going to agree on everything, right? And that's just part of it all. But one thing they did say is that there are still good local churches out there and good local pastors out there. They said that it's going to be hard at first, but all this has strengthened their faith and their marriage, that they did learn a lot. Nellie said that she wrote down what she wanted in a church, and she was able to check off all the boxes of the current church that she was at. And she said all along it was right in front of our faces. She said that God will guide you. She said there are local churches that are healthy. Continue to seek Jesus, forgive them for their ignorance, and place your trust in Jesus. One of the things that we also talked about was some catchphrases. They said, run away from when they say new. God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. There's nothing new under the sun, right? We talked about some triggering catchphrases as well. And like, thank you for your yes. When I hear that, or when I catch myself also saying that, I'm like, that just doesn't feel right anymore, right? Another word is elevate. They use this word a lot, to elevate. If you're not going to be here, then somebody else will get elevated in your place. Honor, even though honor is a good word, right? How it was used, it was misused. Even then, like when we go to say like, I honor you, like it kind of, does something within us to go, but these catchphrases aren't bad, right? We should thank people, right, for the things that they do. We should give honor. We should talk about elevation, but we should give all honor and praise and glory to the Lord, right? It is the Lord who elevates us, not man, right? And when it comes to thank you for your yes, Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to serve in our communities. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to for us to be discipled by you, by your Holy Spirit who guides us into all truth, right? I don't know what that was about. But there is healing and hope after V1. I know this isn't popular, but I have no anger. I have no hatred. I have none of that in my heart for this. And like many of the other testimonies that I read, God can humble us, right? When we take our eyes and take our eyes off of him and give glory to ourselves when all glory should be going to him. There can be a turnaround. They can make a great impact, right? And showing the true Jesus, right? But there has to be many changes. And it has to start from the top all the way down. The people that are being placed as pastors, they're not fit. They're not going through the proper processes. And that is what's causing hurt. If you have accountability and you have elders, share it to the public. So that way, those who were hurt, those who are still struggling, those who want to know, can reach out to the board, can reach out to these elders and give this information, share this if you truly want to be accountable. But don't silence people. Don't shut them up. Don't demonize them. Because this is the thing. You're administering deliverance to people you're also hurting. And so my prayer is that there's continued healing for those who have shared their testimony. And I want to thank those who did, because that requires boldness. But it's time to get back to your first love. It's time to stop promoting self. It's time to stop promoting your books, your movies, and start promoting Jesus and Jesus alone. Because you see what you can do by promoting self, but see how greater you can do when you just promote Jesus. So I'm going to leave it right there. And if you're watching the replay and you have a testimony that you want to share, put it in the comments, because people need to know they're not alone in what they see, what they discerned, what they heard. And it's time to take pastors and leaders, hold them accountable. Because this is the thing. How do you fix something that you don't know is broken? All right. Yes, watch from the beginning so that way you know everything in full context. All right. Bye, guys.